Good morning, everybody. Ooh,
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm gonna just adjust my camera. How's everybody doing? It's a little, dark and cool out. We doing okay otherwise?
I am certainly. Thank you.
Good, good.
Yep.
Exciting. I'm lucky. The girls. I don't know if you've been picking up in the local paper that each high school is trying to make like some sort of deal out of the picking up of caps and gowns for seniors.
Mhm.
So they're taking pictures and putting them in the paper, and so Lena and Vered are picking their caps and gowns up right now.
Oh,
So we'll see what
and,
Yeah.
and then it'll be a virtual graduation.
I don't know. We don't know yet exactly. And maybe we might do something at the synagogue also for all of our seniors.
Hmm.
If we could, I don't know. We're going to think about that soon. But here we are at we are back to our Mishnah. Hopefully, maybe we can finish the whole thing today.
Okay.
We've been taking it pretty slow, but it's been really intense conversation. It's been really nice. So this morning we're focusing on. Let me just kind of refresh everyone's memory. We've been studying this teaching of Ben Zoma. He answers. Well, he purports to answer. I think he's asking these questions as a literary device in order to give the advice, in order to give the wisdom he wants to give. Right? He answers these 4 questions: who is wise, who is mighty, who is rich, and who is honored. And we're really getting a window here into especially early rabbinic wisdom and rabbinic wisdom, where the focus is on how do we the battle that we wage with the world is really an internal battle, and that our job is to work within our spiritual lives to make us better servants of God, right? And each of his answers to these questions turns us in those directions, right? Right? Who is mighty? The one who conquers their material inclinations. That's because they are able to control their drives and their desires, right? Which is a lot of what halakha is about. It's about helping us control ourselves. So when we look here at the final teachings, we're dealing with the questions of who is rich and who is honored. Who is rich, number 1, and then who is honored. And I'll put that up on the screen in just a minute. But before I do so, why don't we maybe have a moment to talk, openly about what we might expect those answers to be. Right? What would we expect an answer to who is rich be?
Well, for me, it's a person who is content with their lot in life, who isn't reaching for somebody else's achievements or possessions. Someone who doesn't have to have the best house on the block. I guess self-effacing is the way to say that.
Self-effacing. Yeah, or just able to be satisfied. Well, why don't we jump into that for a minute? If you are content with what you have and don't need to be the person on the street with the biggest house or the best house or the best car or whatever, what does that mean? You are how do you do that? How does a person do that?
I like the wording here where it says who rejoices in his lot. If you rejoice, if you value and appreciate what you have.
Yeah. So, but let's get into the psychology of it, right? What is it that maybe let me ask it a different way. what is it that leads us to to make decisions based on what other people have or what other people do? What is
Well,
inside of us?
well, it's
Competitiveness, Carla?
Yeah.
I would say a kind of insecurity
Or
that we're
insecurity?
not enough, that a low self-esteem possibly, things like that can drive us to compete.
Right? So, I mean, I wonder if we've all had the experience of thinking, of having I don't have a specific case, so I'm trying to create a hypothetical in my head. A moment where we all, we receive something, whether it's a raise, whether it's a bonus, say at work, or an elevation of our role somehow, and we're like excited. We think it's great, right? Or perhaps we've applied for a job and we get this level of job and we're really happy with it, until we find out that our friend we think of as our equal got something better. I mean, that's certainly an experience I've had, right? And I appreciate what I had, but then I see someone else who I don't think of as better than myself or more equipped or more experienced get something that to me seems better. And then all of a sudden, my attitude about what I receive changes.
well,
Right?
that's an element of jealousy, if you want to look at it like that.
Is it jealous? It could be jealousy, right? Jealousy could be involved, for sure, right? It could be just I'm jealous of that person, but what else could be going on? Like, why did why? I'm not talking about being jealous of what they have as much as now devaluing what I have. Right? I get A, I receive A, whatever A is. And I don't know that my friend is going to get B, right? I don't know that. But in the moment, I'm given A. And I walk away happy. I got A. This is awesome. This is great, right? And it's only later, and when I'm talking to my friend, that I find out that she or he got B. And then all of a sudden, my attitude about what I have becomes a little devalued. Is that jealousy, or is that something else going on?
It makes me think of work situations where I've been in and finding out when it's time for raises that I got a 3% raise, and then I find out that somebody that I don't think is better than I am got a 6% raise. It actually brings to mind a real specific situation, and I don't think it was jealousy as much as feeling like I wasn't valued as much as the other person.
Mm,
No.
yeah. And especially, I mean, it's especially difficult when you're in the same place, when it's right. But if you walk out of that meeting, if I'm creating a situation for you, Carlo, right, for all of us to think about. But each person walks into their meeting to find out what their raises say, and you walk in and you walk out knowing it's 3%, and you say, oh. And I'm not saying this is what you felt like, Carla, because maybe you didn't feel like it was good enough at the beginning, but you feel like it's good until you find out that someone else got more.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And I think there probably is some, jealousy is a part of it, But I think there's also something else that we talked about that Sue brought up, right? Perhaps through the avenue of self-esteem, that we're not, we don't just rely upon what we said, to ourselves. We're not content to say, oh, well, my judgment was that's good enough and I'm fine with that. Right? That's the rare person. Okay, let's take a look here. Let's take a look at the rabbis. I'm not sure if some of you have the text already. There we go. Someone who could read for us the question, who is rich?
I can do that.
Thanks, Peter.
Who is rich? One who rejoices in his or her lot, as it is said, you shall enjoy the fruit of your labors, you shall be happy, and you shall prosper. You shall be happy in this world, and you shall prosper in the world to come.
Yeah. Let's pull this one apart. Okay. I think on the face of it, it's pretty straightforward, but then it gets a little twisty at the end. So on the first level, Peter.
Yes.
Before the quote from Psalms,
Mm-hmm.
What's the answer to who is rich?
Well, revisits what we said before. One who is content, one whose mind is at ease with his lot in life.
One who rejoices with what they have.
Right.
Their portion. There's some, yeah, right. So you can translate this in a bunch of different ways depending on how you want to take it. But it's, one who rejoices with their chelek is a portion or section. So you can take that to mean really literally what you have, or you take it to be your place in the world, your place in life. And then we have a quote from Psalms to back it up, which the first part of which is a good translation, but as long as you appreciate the steps that go into it. Right? You shall enjoy the fruit of your labors. What are the reasons that we might not enjoy the fruits of our labors?
Want more.
Well, the rewards or fruits we may feel are inadequate.
Okay, so I heard from Francis and Peter, right, that we might want more.
Other people take the fruits of our labor.
Other people take the fruits of our labor. Or, what's another possibility in between those two? Or Hillary, other people take the fruits of our labor, right?
Sorry, you broke up. I'm
sorry. So, other people take the fruits of our labor. That's either like the person we work for, or right, or some sort of. Oh, my internet connection is unstable for the moment.
Yeah, I missed a bunch of what you just said.
Yeah, I think I was bubbly there for, or staticky for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So, one reason why we might not enjoy the fruits of our labors is that we just don't think it's enough, right? We're bitter. We don't find it to be satisfying for some reason. And then Hillary, you brought up a good option as well, right? Which is that someone else takes the benefit of our labor, right?
Mhm.
And that's either that's going to be probably intentional, right? Someone else is taking it either illegally or legally, ill-gotten, or just, that's how the capitalist system works. But what's another possibility?
There is no fruit of your labor. Perhaps there's a drought if you're a farmer, or
Right? Yeah. So it might be also that you put in all this work and it just doesn't work out. Right? It could just be happenstance as well. So enjoying the fruits of our labors is not just an internal thing, right? It's not just a spiritual thing, but it actually it can be. There's an element of spiritual there, but it can be a physical thing. Like we're not receiving the benefits. And that's more evident in the Hebrew, because it says in the Hebrew, "Yegia kapecha," which means the work of your hand will come to you. Right. So if you want to tell someone that they're deserving of something, in modern Hebrew you would say "Yagia lach" or "Magia lach." He's deserving of it, or she's deserving of it. Right. It's the same verb. So yagia kapecha means the work of your hand is coming to you. Ki tochel, which you will benefit from or consume or eat. It's quite literally here going to probably be eating, because back in the time of the Psalms, they were pretty much almost all farmers, right? Or at least that's the metaphor we spoke in. And then ashrecha, you will feel fortunate, you'll be happy, v'tovlach, and it will be good for you. Now, before we get to the way that verse is, the second part of that verse is interpreted, right? Because the verse here is going to be interpreted, the second part, to the idea of feeling fortunate or being happy, and it will be good for you, as applying to two different times, or two different moments in life, or right? The interpretation will be, or the translation is, you'll be happy in this world, and you will prosper in the world to come. And I think that so we see a relationship here between ashrecha, about feeling fortunate, and things going well for you. V'tovlach, right? There's some sort of connection between those two things. Feeling fortunate somehow leads to it being good for you. The interpretation takes it to be, if you feel fortunate in this world, it will be good for you in the world to come. Right? But that's not in the Psalm. The Psalm just says, you'll be happy and you shall prosper, and you will do well. So is there a link, and what's the link between feeling fortunate and prospering or doing well?
I think prospering is talking about the next harvest.
Oh. Okay, so let's take that further. So if he's talking about what comes next, right? The next harvest.
Right.
So spell that out for us, Francis.
Well, I think the psalmist is trying to say, if you're content with your lot, then God will prosper you in the next harvest.
Okay.
I don't know.
No, yeah, it's good. I like that's I think a fine reading of the psalm, right? Although God is not mentioned, right?
Right.
But it's poetry, it's a psalm, so there's often detail that's lacking, right? So we don't have those kinds of details spread out. It's not prose, it's poetry. It's certainly written in the context of relationship with God. right? So it's not a stretch to put God in there. And the way you're reading it, Francis, is that by feeling fortunate in the moment, God will prosper you in the next cycle.
You're
Right?
not you're not blaming God for your lot. You're accepting it and willing to move on.
Yeah. Indeed. So when we read the beginning of the verse, Yegia kapecha ki tochel, the work of your hand will come to you and you will eat. Or you shall enjoy the fruit of your labors. Is that, how do I put it this way? Would you say that sentence is in keeping with Max Weber's idea of the Protestant work ethic? Right, that you have to work hard and toil to receive reward? Or does it seem kind of more promising? Do you read it as promising more than you'll receive more than what you put into it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, do you read fruit of your labors as being a promise of great bounty, or the fruit of your labors being like, you're going to reap what you sow?
The latter.
The latter. Okay, Peter. So more on the you're going to reap what you sow line?
The Protestant work ethic is based on if you didn't get enough, you work harder the next time.
Yeah.
And perhaps God will reward you. But that means you're not happy with what you got, but you got to work harder.
You got to work harder, right?
Right.
So,
and the reward is up to you, your effort.
is it not here up to you also?
Say that again.
In this verse, is it not up to you as well?
What do you think?
Yes, it's up to you, but I mean, the Protestant that I remember is it's more up to you because you were lacking.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's the way the mill workers were managed, do more, get more.
So I guess I'm asking, could we read this verse as kind of like a peppier, positive version of that? Right? You're going to reap what you sow. You're going to enjoy the fruits of your labors. So if you put in a lot, you'll get a lot. If you don't put in a lot, you won't get a lot. And you should be happy with what you get. And that'll be good for you in the future. Not quite, but
somehow or another, to me, this is speaking to always looking at the Joneses kind of concept. And so you're never happy with what you have, okay?
Yeah.
Because you don't have what they have, something better, or do. And so you're never content where you are because of that. So then you don't live a fruitful life of being happy. You're not happy. You're never happy. And you'll never be happy because you'll never have what you think you should have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and anyway, so that's what that verse is saying to me, is bloom where you're planted. It doesn't mean you're stuck. You can still progress. You don't have to stay where you are, but be happy in what you're doing.
Mm. Nice. Well, we tend to overvalue our own contribution and undervalue the contributions of others.
Right.
And we tend to feel our own pain much more severely than we feel other people's pain, right? And we tend to also not appreciate what we have as much as we appreciate what other people have.
Right.
Okay. So one suggestion that we heard was from Francis, with the insertion of God into this in the Psalm, that if you reap your, if you enjoy the benefits of the fruit of your labor and are happy, then God will prosper you the next time around.
Yeah, well, if you're a farmer, you know God is in this.
For sure, right?
You need rain, you need sunshine, you need lack of pests, and a lot of those things back in those days they couldn't control.
No. Does anyone have a different reading before we take it to the next level? Because what we're going to do next is we're going to look at how do we apply that to this statement at the end of the world to come. But we could entertain a different perspective on that teaching beforehand. We're all comfortable with that idea?
Oh, I'm thinking that very much involved in this is your motivation for your labors.
Okay.
Like if the point of your work is to accumulate money so you can outdo your neighbor, versus are you working so that you can provide for your family and provide food for other people in society too. I think that's in there somewhere, your motives for your labors.
I'm trying to think about this also. And we're thinking about the person who is rich. If they receive the fruit of their labors and are satisfied with it and act in a contented way, I think others would probably want to work with them too. And, a lot of the benefit in our lives depend on not just our own efforts, but on how other people view us as good cooperators. There's been studies of human behavior in terms of cooperative behavior. And we kind of watch out for bad cooperators, people who are cheaters, and then we don't cooperate with them. We don't bring them into our circle. And one of the ways we prosper is by working together in a community. And happy, good cooperators get invited in, and negative people don't get invited in, so they don't do as well in life overall.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about artists and their labors and how sometimes they are not very financially successful, but if they create a great and wonderful piece of art or a piece of music that brings joy to other people, and that is their reward versus money, if they can be happy with that, that would be a very different, it would just be a very different perspective on this.
If we look at the African American slave in general, this was their philosophy. I'm stuck here, but wait till the world to come. I'll be in a different place.
Mm.
And that can be used against you or for you. it helps you cope in a world where you can't change things, but it also allows your master to manipulate you.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We see that all the time in different ways and different levels.
Right.
Yeah, I was told when I came down here that cone mills and they're just big plantations. The whole concept of how they manage and run. But when I got down here, I found out it was a little different.
Okay. So how is it different?
Well, I know that Cohn paid off the mortgages of all the people who he employed during the Depression so that they would have a secure place. I mean, he didn't have to do that, but he did that. Also, in some of the mills, if you were sick, you know, they paid for your doctor bill and things like that. Others did not, but it was a different world.
For sure. Well, in either case, right, if we're either reading this about the farmer in the next season or about our lives and some sort of promise of benefit in the world to come, right, in both instances, it's a promise of something in the future for our behavior today.
Right.
Correct.
Which one are we more comfortable with? The idea that if we find happiness and contentment in what we have, that things will go better for us in this world, like it'll lead to more success somehow, or that there's some sort of payoff in a different spiritual plane for how we're able to find contentment in whatever it is we have here. Because even though they are both promises of something more in a different time, based on our attitude right now, they're very different, right? Because one is, if you're able just to be content with what you have here in this world, you will do well. Like you're going to prosper in the world to come. And the other is, if you're able to find contentment and happiness with what you have right now, you will have better tomorrow. Right?
I think all the readings all seem to be telling you that you need to read the Torah to understand that you should be living your life helping others with what you have, no matter if it's little or much.
Mm-hmm.
That you should still be helping your neighbor with what you have. And the life to come is, to me, a part of faith that I can't grasp. You know, I can't put in my hands.
Yeah.
But how I live my life, that's what I have in my hands. What's in the Bible, the Torah, you know, to follow.
Yeah.
And that to me, every time we do these, is it a Mishnah?
Yeah.
Every time we do these and the rabbis tell us, I always think it just boils down to that.
It boils
But anyway,
down to,
that's me.
yeah, it boils down to what, Margaret?
It always boils down to know your Torah, know God's word, and do it.
Okay.
Live it. Yeah, and live it. And I have seen the generosity of people who have nothing. I remember I didn't get to we didn't get to go when we've done different mission trips in our church to Nicaragua and to Mexico, but we didn't get to go to South Africa. And my church went to South Africa while there was still apartheid, and they stayed in Soweto. with the people.
Yeah.
And they were the only white people there because that was a separate place.
Mm-hmm.
And they were astonished when the people made gifts for them before they came back to the United States, and they were living with them, and they were so poor and had so little compared to what they had at home, and they just couldn't believe how generous they were.
Yeah.
And I just think that to me is quite often people are surprised by the generosity of poor people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they don't know that. They think they're just dirt. They don't think they ever find that out because they're never the friend of a poor person.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to live and know all kinds of people. We can't be separated out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I just feel, and I have I've just come from that kind of background where we didn't even know we were poor.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, we thought we were rich. When my sister-in-law married into my family, she said, "I thought you guys were rich compared with what she had."
Yeah.
Okay, and then she found out we weren't any better off than her family. But anyway.
So much it's about attitude. Like, so I think, Margaret, what I hear you saying is that often our attitudes about what we have are not in line with our position,
Right.
In terms of financial success in the world.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think that the author, like so far, Ben Zoma, right? Ben Zoma has been very, I think, very grounded so far, right? Very practical and pragmatic in the advice, right?
Right.
Who is wise? One who learns from everyone. Who is mighty? One who subdues their inclination, right? Keep control of yourself.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, this who is rich, we have the payoff, but the payoff is in some sort of world to come. Right? You will prosper in Tovlach. It'll be good for you in the world to come. Is that a cop-out?
Is that right?
Is that a cop-out?
Right? Why can't he say it's good for you in this world?
Well, it's not the American way, I'll tell you that. I was thinking of Jacob. He's in a nice area, then he has a famine.
Yep.
He's not content. So he's moving, okay? That's kind of against this. He said, I'm not going to stay here and starve. I'm going to try and save my family. So it's a double-edged thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, all advice is right. There are a few bits of advice that you can just follow without any adjustments. Yeah. So he can't say, right, that it's good for you. It'll be good for you because that often is. It so often is not.
Right.
Right. So often we don't have the benefit of prospering. There are a lot of people who don't prosper in this, even though they might work very hard. So that's why I ask, is it a cop-out to make the promise, the payout to be in the world to come, something that we can't check? Right? Like if you had if you're taking a math test, and you show all the work on one page, but the final answer, right, that you also have to get right, you say, you told the teacher, that'll be that's on the next page, and there's no next page, right? Or that'll come to you tomorrow. Right? The teacher's not going to accept that as an answer and give you the benefit, right, of seeing all the good work. Maybe that metaphor is not working. I'm looking at your faces. I'm not seeing it. It might have been too ethereal. And maybe I'm beating a dead horse here. What do you all make of it? The promise of prospering in the world to come.
Well, it's on two levels. One of them is the future, essentially in this world, and the other one is what you can expect after you die.
Yeah. Right, so actually, absolutely, right? And I think the psalm is towards the future of this world, and it's Ben-Zoma who steers that to be about the world to come, right?
Yes.
And so am I wrong that we all prefer the Psalms reading of it over Ben-Zoma?
I think so, yes.
We're not are any of us working hard in this world in order to receive some sort of spiritual benefit in a different spiritual world, a world to come?
Well, I think all of us really are, even if it's subliminal.
Oh. How so?
Well, you strive to live a meritorious life, and you don't really expect a payoff, even if you hope for it.
Okay. Any other
Best
final?
payoff for me is for my grandchildren to do well and for there to be a good world for them to live in after I'm gone.
Oh, my internet connection is wonky again. Yeah, I mean, for me, that resonates as well, right? That the prosper that happens after I'm gone has to do with how I'll be remembered and what I'll leave behind me. Okay, let's go to the last teaching. Ezehu mechubad. Who is honored? Hamechabed et habriot. One who honors other people. Shnei Amar, as it says in Shmuel Aleph, the first book of Samuel, chapter 2. Ki mechabdai achabed, uvozai yekalu. Those who honor me, I will honor, and those who spurn me, I will dishonor. Well, shall be dishonored. It's in the passive there. Now, I think one of the things that's interesting here is that the English translation, at least of the first phrase, is reversed in terms of the order. Right? In the Hebrew it says, Ki mechabdai, those who honor me, achabed, I will honor. Yet in the translation it says, for I honor those that honor me. Now we might say that I'm being picky and I'm getting too picky about it, but it seems to me there's a difference in terms of how we approach these things. Right? Is it just a passive thing where I wait for people to honor me, and then those who honor me I will honor, and those who scorn me I will are scorned as well? Or am I should I be proactive and honor everyone?
But this is God speaking, right? Because it's capitalized.
No.
Me.
This maybe it is it. Hold on. It's Shmuel. I can find out. Oops. Okay, that's not working. Yeah, it's Hannah.
Oh, it's Hannah?
Well, let's see if we can find it. Sometimes the citations are wrong.
Okay, kiddo.
There it is.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be there.
Lord.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Assuredly declares the Lord, the God of Israel, I intended for you and your father's house to remain in my service forever. Yata ne'um Adonai halila li, but now declares the Lord, far be it from me, or literally, for I honor those who honor me, but those who spurn me shall be dishonored. So this is God to Eli, the priest, right? That
Right.
because your children, your sons have been
Yeah.
drunkards and
Right.
they don't compare well to Hannah, the person you accosted for praying as if she were drunk. I'm going to take this. You will be spurned, essentially, right? Because
Right.
you have not honored me. Okay.
I set you a timer, kiddo.
So when listen, the well, anytime
I have it.
we look at a proof
Here, you
text,
want
we do want to examine it in its original context. Sometimes that context has nothing to do and does not inform at all how we might read it in the way it's cited. But oftentimes, what its original context is, brings a depth of meaning that we wouldn't have seen otherwise, just from seeing the quote. Okay?
Right.
So how do you think it is here? Like, does knowing that these are God's words to Ellie, because, this is really interesting, right? Because I think, as Carla just said, and it resonates with me. One of the ways I think about the world to come, right, is my spiritual legacy I leave behind me in this world. And although I don't see any reference to that here in the words of Ben Zoma, he just says the world to come, right?
Right.
Yet then the very next teaching has a citation where Ellie's spiritual legacy is cut by God because his children have gone astray and betrayed him. And therefore, it's now going to be the prophet Samuel who inherits that tradition.
I see two levels.
Okay?
Human beings are to honor everyone that we come in contact with.
Yep.
The other is God's standard of honor. In other words, we're not to dishonor people, but God has a different level of what he considers honoring.
Mm-hmm.
But as humans, we're supposed to give honor to all human beings.
Okay.
So something that's always struck me about the story of Hannah and Eli is just how unkind and uncharitable he is towards her.
Yeah.
And that this appears to be, God's response is that he's so uncharitable to her. And while he changes, as soon as she hears, she assumes the worst of her when there could be all sorts of things why she's crying.
Yeah. Now, let's get into Ellie's mindset. His sons, in fact, are drunkards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he sees around him all the time. I'm trying to read him with a little generosity. I don't know. I agree with you. Like, I think that Hillary, that Ellie is not generous at all when he meets Hannah, right? Yet, I'm not sure that that's what God is upset with Ellie about. I think if when we read it,
having raised teenagers, there's a time for celebration and there's a time for correction.
yeah.
Ellie is not correcting his sons.
No, and
And that's part of loving.
Yes. And so when we look at that verse, right, I don't think it's about his treat. I mean, yes, how we treat other people is a reflection of our relationship with God, right? We can't have a good relationship with God if we don't treat other people well.
Right.
But at the end of this chapter, it seems to be that the punishment that we get is either a summation, like it's for all of Ellie's life, and it's not really Ellie who's being punished as much as the next generations that come, or it's specifically for his children, his sons acting wantonly. Right? If a man, here we have it in verse 25, if a man sins against man, God may pardon him, but if a man offends against God, who can obtain pardon for him? But they ignored their father's plea, for the Lord was resolved that they should die. Young Samuel, meanwhile, grew in esteem in favor both with God and with men. Which is interesting, right?
Right.
V'hana'ar Shmuel, in the youth, Samuel, holech v'gadel, he went and he grew, v'atov, and was good. Gam im Adonai, also with God, v'gam im anashim, also with people. And then a man of God came to Eli, right, which is also weird because wouldn't you think that the priest would be called a man of God? But it's some sort of man of God came to Eli and said to him, "Thus said the Lord, lo, I revealed myself to your father's house in Egypt when they were subject to the house of Pharaoh, and I chose them from among all the tribes of Israel to be my priests, right, to ascend my altar, to burn incense, to carry an ephod before me, and assign to your father's house all offerings by fire of the Israelites," right? Meaning, I gave to your ancestors this special role to play between me and the rest of the people. And in return for that sacred role, you would be given even food, right? You'd be, and I assigned to your father's house all the offerings by fire of the Israelites, meaning you get a portion of all those offerings, all those sacrifices. And then why do you then maliciously trample upon the sacrifices and offerings that I have commanded? You have honored your sons more than me, feeding on the first portions of every offering of my people Israel. Let's sum up this verse, right? My intention was this would be forever, that you and your family would have this role passed down from generation to generation forever. However, right, but now declares the Lord, far be it from me, chalilali, right? It's an abomination to me. Ki mechadai achabed, for those who honor me, I will honor, and those who spurn me will be dishonored. So when we take that and we bring it back here, what does knowing the original context of that verse, how does that affect our understanding of what it means to honor other human beings? Or does it? Maybe it doesn't. So you can ask yourself, well, without the proof text, right? Because listen, you don't need the proof text, right, to think there's wisdom there.
Right.
Who is honored? One who honors their fellow human beings. We could leave it there. And then it sounds more like a reciprocal relationship, right? If I put honor out into the world, honor will come to me. And I think there's some truth in that. So how does the reading of Samuel chapter 2 verse 30 affect how we understand that, or add a layer.
Well, it's possible that to fulfill one's role in the community was to do one's social duties. And Ellie and that family were not fulfilling their social duties and disrupting the community as much as they were also dishonoring God. I mean, that's a possible link of, sort of, if you don't honor your fellow human beings by playing your proper role in the community, you also, at least in their case, spurn God. So the two are connected.
Yeah.
In the source text. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way here. It might add a little insight.
Mm-hmm.
Because what honors God and what also allows the community to function well are connected.
Or should be.
Or ought to be.
Ought to be, right? I mean, I think too often we see a perversion of that in this world. Many people not honoring God who are honored.
Well, I think many of the prophets in the Old Testament talked about you don't see the poor, the widow, and those people as part of your community. You see them as someone to exploit. So they were not honoring them. And by that, they were not honoring God, because he has deep concern for the poor and the widow and the oppressed.
Mm-hmm. So it's a reminder of the context in which we live, right? The bigger context.
Yeah, it's a community, like she said, context.
It's interesting to note here at the end of this teaching, right, that this is the only time God is mentioned, and that is mentioned in an indirect way. No? Kind of a capstone, maybe. A final reminder at the end. It's all about the context you live your life in.
Well, you said it's indirect. Me is more personal than the Lord, to me.
Yeah.
In other words, he's really getting personal.
I honor those who honor me, right? It's very intimate. And the rabbis, if they, using this quote, they knew exactly what they were quoting. For sure. Well, interesting things. Great conversation today. We'll continue next week with, finally, after 4 weeks or so, we're going to move on to another teaching.
Okay.
Thank you, and it's going
Thank
very
you.
well.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. It's
Thank
good to see you all, and may we have sunnier skies ahead of us.
Right.
Right.
But
Okay, have a good day.
Right.
You too.
yeah, be safe.
Bye.